Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review Scottish Cup Final special here as we react to Rangers' 2-0 win over Hearts at Hampden this afternoon. I'm Derek Clark and I'm joined by Joshua Barrie and Jonny McFarlane, who are at the game for the Rangers Review, and they're about to tell me all that went on. But before we do that, just a bit of housekeeping, folks, as you can see in the banner on the top right-hand side of the screen, we're sponsored by One Football. It's the one-stop shop app for all your footballing needs, as you can see there on the screen. If you want to know anything about Rangers, insight into the club, lots of stuff from the Rangers Review on there as well, so you can keep updated with all the latest goings on at Ibrox. You can also keep abreast of all the other football clubs, not only in the Scottish Premiership, but elsewhere as well, down south, all the English side, and further afield in Europe as well. It really is a fantastic app, the one-stop shop, as I mentioned, One Football app, and it's totally free as well. So we do recommend you head over there and just have a wee play about and see just what goodies are in there. It is a cracking app. So that is our sponsor, and that's out the way. And everyone's tuning in, Jonny, because they want to hear about Rangers this afternoon. 2-0 winners over Hearts after extra time. It was the two substitutes that popped up with the goals. Ryan Jack with a screamer, and then Scott Wright just shortly after with a fantastic controlled finish into the bottom corner. Rangers, I felt, controlled the match from start to finish. They were maybe guilty of passing up a number of opportunities. Craig Gordon was his usual fantastic self. I had a save from Joe Rebo, which was outstanding, although Rebo should have been awarded a penalty as his shirt was being pulled. But nonetheless, I think Rangers were deserved winners. Jonny, you were there for us. What was your main takeaways from the game?
Yeah, I thought Rangers deserved the win. Ultimately, Hearts didn't offer an awful lot, I don't think, going forward. Did John McLaughlin make a save? I don't recall him really being troubled. They looked a little bit dangerous with Ellis Sim going in behind. He's obviously a very powerful player, got a lot going for him, but ultimately, the better side won. Rangers didn't have a good first half. I thought there was a number of players that didn't perform at their best. But you have to say, come extra time, and I think, to be honest, after Giovanni Van Bronckhorst brought on Glenn Kamara and Ryan Jack, the game changed. There was more control.
Yeah.
Throughout the game, Rangers kind of lacked that kind of midfield dominance. You look at Lundstrom was very isolated. It was almost like a 4-1-5, and within that, Aribo was also isolated. But when they came on, it went more traditional, I thought, 4-2-3-1, and Rangers looked all the better for it. And listen, two wonderful, wonderful goals, two great Scottish Cup moments. Then you had the moment with Alan McGregor, who's actually down in front of me by, I think, Rangers TV. So it was a great game. The atmosphere was absolutely terrific in the stadium. Credit to the Hearts fans as well. Both them and the Rangers fans just really made it a festival. It was absolutely fantastic being in amongst it. Moments of real incredible noise. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. And listen, Derek, the main thing about it is, it really is a deserved reward for what Rangers have done this season. Ultimately, they've had a fantastic season. Josh was telling me earlier, and of course he's absolutely right about this. Rangers have only missed one game this season. They nearly played every game available to them, because if they'd gone to the final of the League Cup, that would have been every single game they could have played.
Yeah.
So that just shows you the scale of their achievement. We know all about Europe, and we could wax lyrical about that for days. What they did was unbelievable. But this gives them something tangible. And in many ways, it's the end of an era here, because we know that this squad will be broken up. We know that a number of players will leave in the summer, and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst will look to move things into his own image. And that's going to be very interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, I like this comment here, Jonny. Jonny allowed out of his room. It was good to see you out at the game.
Well, it only happened at the last minute, Derek, because of course you ended up stranded in Milan. So here I am.
Yeah, you can blame Brussels Airlines for that, folks. Unfortunately, I just got home this morning from Seville. So, Jonny, at the 11th hour stepped in a super sub to make it to Hampden. So great stuff. Joshua, we were speaking on the halftime spaces on Twitter about Rangers possibly looking a little lethargic, understandably so, given the excerpts and the emotional baggage that comes with losing a Europa League final on penalties. However, as Jonny said there, and as Giovanni van Bronckhorst has mentioned in his post-match interview, the terms of in energy and what have you, in extra time, the fitness levels were superb from Rangers, and I think the substitutions that he made, and you've touched on it in your piece on the Rangers review that's just went up just now, folks.
Yeah.
Substitutions, bringing Kamara and Jack on now. I was watching in Premier Sports, and the substitutions were being criticised at the time for being slightly negative. But once again, Giovanni van Bronckhorst comes up trumps with his alterations.
Yeah, and he's just out in front of me and Jonny just now having a photo with all his staff, which is good. And Derek, it is, I must say, nice to be happy at Hampden. I mean, you know, me and Jonny were speaking just before the final whistle, and we're realising this is actually the first major trophy Rangers will lift in front of their fans since 2011. You know, it's a long time, and the longer the game goes on, you're thinking, oh, surely not. When Craig Gordon makes that save, because, you know, for all the fact that Rangers have underperformed in cup competitions, there's also been freak results like the League Cup final 2 years ago, and for much of that game with Rangers not scoring, there was that thought in my mind that, you know, could this happen? But no, so important. Great to see James Tavernier climb those Hampden steps. I think so important for players and those that will leave to end with the trophy. I think it's hard to contextualise this season. Van Bronckhorst, when asked about it in the press conference, simply said hectic, which I think is fair. But what I kind of said in my colour piece, Derek, is that I think there's two things. I think firstly, this group of players, we don't know how many will leave this summer, but let's say a good number leave, and certainly the core of the squad evolves. They won't be remembered for what they didn't win. Yes, the Europa League will be looked back with natural regret when you have the opportunity to win it. But it won't, you know, if they'd lost here today at Hampden, I think this phase of this Rangers team would have always been categorised as nearly men, and of course they've not. I mean, the whole discussion to be had about how you sum up their time here, but what is important is that I think it ends with silverware. And the second point to that is that this is a difficult season, but it's ended as Rangers seasons, not a difficult season, sorry, a season with highs and lows, but it's ended as seasons at Rangers should end, which is waving a shiny thing at the supporters. So an enjoyable day, good to end positively, and they 100% deserved it. I mean, Craig Gordon pulled out a few really good saves.
Yeah.
John McLaughlin didn't have much to do. I think there was the natural nervousness because I think Ellis Sims was quite effective, and obviously the scar tissue of cup football is still there, but that'll will certainly be less so after today.
Yeah, I put Joshua's piece in the comment section, folks, so you can click on that, you can check it out. Jonny, Calvin Bassey once again was immense. A few comments coming in. Scott Berg says he was like Maldini, a machine. The guy, I'm running out of superlatives for this guy. He has been phenomenal for Rangers this season. He was my player of the season. I know the awards were handed out a few weeks ago, but if they can keep hold of this boy, they've won a watch in the summer, because there's going to be so many clubs wanting to take him away, because again today he was absolutely outstanding, wasn't he?
He was incredible again today, Derek. As good as he was in the Europa League final, I didn't think that performance could be topped. But today, once again, he was absolutely at his top level. I gave him an 8 in the match ratings. Probably should have given him a 9, to be honest. It was probably a little bit stingy, but I'm a bit more stingy than boys on these match ratings. I don't like to be going all guns. Somebody gets a hat trick, they get a 9. Listen, I think we need to be realistic. This is how good he's been. He's been so good that I just find it impossible to believe that Rangers are not going to be receiving some kind of enormous bid. We know that there are a number of Premier League clubs looking at him. Told that there's been Premier League clubs looking at him for quite some time. And there are others as well sniffing about on the European scene, I think, who have also been looking at him. Josh very sagely described him to me with a quote that I've subsequently stolen and will be going in my piece tomorrow, that he's a cheat code. A bit like Kyle Walker. He's a guy that can play in multiple positions. He's got electric pace, great power, and those are the two things that are most in demand across elite leagues in European football. So I'd be really, really stunned if there wasn't huge bids coming in, and I'd be equally surprised if Rangers were able to actually keep a hold of him, because unless there's a new contract coming, he's only got 2 years left on his deal. It would be amazing if they could tie him down as the sort of cornerstone of the Giovanni Van Bronckhorst era. But I think he's been so good that I find it hard to believe that there won't be incredible pressure to accept a deal. And I think we're talking record money for a club that's already made £16 million from one of the youth talents that has gone out the door.
Derek, can I just say on that Barrie point that I think it's an important point to note. Van Bronckhorst, he said this previously, but he highlighted again in the press. I'm just out of the press conference, and he highlighted it again. And he said when he was here, the 2 times ago that Rangers were here at Hampden, the game before he assumed control in the cup semi-final defeat against Hibs, Calvin Barrie played at centre-half because Leon Balogun was effectively injured in that game. And it was after he'd played there against Sparta Prague, and no one thought he was a centre-back, and everyone was a bit kind of, oof. I mean, I remember the 4-2 win against Ross County, Stephen Gerrard's last game. Calvin Barrie actually comes on at centre-back. Doesn't give away a goal, but he's poor positionally. And I have a vivid memory of him walking off the pitch and speaking to Tom Culshaw. And Culshaw was kind of showing him what he should have been doing with his positioning. Rangers had won the game, but they conceded a late goal. And you see the parallel with that and this performance. I know he wasn't playing at centre-back tonight, but his season in that role. And what Van Bronckhorst said was, I saw something in that game, effectively a pressure he made and the ability he had, but also the maturity that he had to work with as a young player. And I think it's a unique blend where Jonny's right. Barrie has all the attributes that top clubs pay so much money for in a game that's so, transitional and so fast and insipid in the modern game. But Barrie also evidently is very humble, willing to learn. And if you look at his development in a position he hadn't really played in just 6 months, imagine how much better he can be. And that's what clubs will be looking at. As much as they'll be looking at his performances now, they'll be looking at what can this guy's performance ceiling be. So I think you've also got to give Van Bronckhorst huge credit for bringing out that in a player. We often speak about, what's the balance between a manager bringing out something in a player and the player deserving credit for actually doing the job itself. But I think that's a perfect example of a coach who's taken someone who's willing to learn and help turn them into a player who is almost not unrecognisable because he was still good last season, but when you look at the importance of him at the end of this season compared to the end of last season, it's remarkable, and it will certainly be due a good few articles over the summer.
Yeah, and listen, he did say, speak to Premier Sports afterwards and says he sees his future at Rangers, but if a multi-million-pound bid comes in, maybe a decision that's taken out of his hands. But certainly when you see players going down south for record money, I'm talking about 80 million for Harry Maguire. I'd have Calvin Barrie in my team any day of the week ahead of that guy. So there's the starting point, folks. £80 million. Multiple Man says he was so powerful that Andy Halliday's allowed to pounce him with no foul given. We'll not touch on Rolly Cullen, but Ali McCoy and Stephen Craigan were they were flabbergasted at some of the decisions that Cullen made today. Wasn't his best of games, but fortunately we're not talking about the referee. We're talking about a deserved Rangers victory. And Jonny, great substitution at the end as well for Alan McGregor to come on and replace John McLaughlin. Personally speaking, I would have loved him just to go up front, just to try and get a goal, just for the bants. But what a great touch that was to see him coming on at the end there.
It was amazing. It was a great moment, and Alan McGregor deserves it. I've heard a lot of people talk about who the greatest Rangers keeper is. For me, I'll always say Andy Gorham because of what he did for the club, and I think he really was world class when he was at Rangers. But Alan McGregor has been unbelievable for the club over the years, and I think he would definitely be the second best. A lot of people disagree with that and say that no, McGregor's actually pipped it now. So, but we'll see how it goes. I don't know if he'll retire at the end of the season or if he'll stick around. I don't think he's been great this season. He's not let anyone down in terms of the important end to the season. I thought he was pretty good in the finals. Didn't have a lot to do, obviously, and he wasn't playing today apart from the end. Didn't have a lot to do in this tiny little spell on the pitch at the end. Didn't have anything to do, but I thought he was good in the Europa League, and listen, he deserves an incredible amount of respect for what he's achieved at the club and how big a figure he's been in this squad. You look at the guys that are there at the moment that will probably be leaving. You think of Stephen Davis, you think of Connor Goldson. It's an incredible amount of experience and know-how and leadership that could potentially walk out of Ibrox if deals aren't agreed. We know that there's a possibility something could be done, but we'll have to wait and see, I presume, on that.
Yeah. Joshua, Van Bronckhorst was asked about certain players out of contract, players, Stephen Davis, Leon Balogun. He said that there'll be changes in the summer. I think we can all foresee changes. Those players, I can't see them staying. Would you be inclined to keep a hold of the likes of Davis and Balogun, McGregor in that bracket as well, or can you see major upheaval in the summer?
Just on the McLaughlin point as well, McGregor. Van Bronckhorst said in the press conference that was actually, I think, McLaughlin's idea. But it seems like it. McLaughlin said that he'd give up his position for the final minutes if the win was secured. So that's, I think, it's quite a touch of class, especially, giving up your position on the pitch for when the kind of final whistle goes in the cup final. I think that shows probably the esteem that McLaughlin holds McGregor in. But on your point of who stays, Van Bronckhorst pretty coy on that. Balogun pretty coy on that. Well, actually, Balogun wasn't. Balogun was in the press conference and he was effectively saying he'd love to stay. But it sounds like that decision is maybe still to be confirmed, still to be made. Who would you keep from that team? The thing is, Derek, I think you need to move on as well. And that's as great as this team's been. There's time for a new evolution. There's time for Van Bronckhorst to get his own players in. And as much as it would be important to keep an element of the squad and to keep some players, this squad was also built for a different manager style of football. And what the balance that Van Bronckhorst will need to strike along with Ross Wilson is getting players in that are perhaps more accustomed to this style of football. I mean, me and Jonny were talking about this in the game about, certainly at points, I think Van Bronckhorst football domestically, you look at points of that game, and I said in my colour piece that Rangers probably put possession up for grabs too much to really be in control. I don't think they had the kind of control that made the game as one-dimensional as probably it could have been, as well as obviously giving consideration to the fact there's a cup final. And I think in the summer you will see probably a different profile, a different style of player come in that fits Van Bronckhorst mould a little bit better, and it's gonna be an intriguing summer. There's, we think we're getting a break, and maybe it will be a wee bit of a lull for a wee bit, but I'm sure then it will be, full on because
we're taking a break. We are taking a break.
Yeah, absolutely. But think of in July of how many players could go, how many players could come in, and how that changes the core of it. So no, I believe me, I'm all for a break. It's 65 games this season. It's been a long season. What a season to start this kind of project. But just really delighted for this group of players and for the supporters, Derek, that it ended with celebration, because I think that's very befitting of all the highs that they've had this season. And after all the kind of celebrations on European nights and big wins, it was nice to have a moment of celebration where silverware followed at the end.
Yeah, and talking about new signings, Jonny, John Souttar was playing for Hearts today. Thought he was outstanding. I've got to admit that plenty of encouragement having watched that going into next season, albeit we know about his injury record. But if Rangers can keep him fit, then they've got a player on their hands there.
Yeah, I thought he was excellent. I did say that to Joshua after about 40 minutes. Thought John Souttar had been exemplary, hadn't put a foot wrong. We know that he's comfortable on the ball for a Scottish centre-half. We know that he can bring it out, he can pass, he's good in the air. He's just a solid centre-half at this level. The question is, can he do what many of the players in this squad have done and actually take the step up? Because I get the feeling now there will be a lot of appetite for this team to kick on, this squad to kick on, what's remaining of it, and ensure that the kind of joy that was delivered from Seville is not just an accident, that Rangers continue to be a powerhouse in Europe, and that Ibrox continues to be a place that is admired and feared across Europe. And that's what has been built here. And listen, I'm going to talk about this in a piece that I'm writing tomorrow, Derek, but I think there'll be a lot of people who might say 2 trophies in 4 years. I think that is incredibly myopic and misses a huge part of the Rangers story. In many ways, people thought 55 was the end of the rebuild era. to me, I think there's a real case for it being this win today, because I think Rangers are actually much stronger now than they were maybe even 15 years ago. They are very, very stable from a financial point of view. They've brought in all this cash from the European run. You've got multiple players worth 8 figures in the squad. They are in a place where you've got YouTubers coming from around the world to sample the Ibrox atmosphere. It's becoming more and more famous. Believe me, that's a big driver in today's world of commercial revenues and TV rights. On top of that, you've got, I think, a fan base that has really covered itself in glory out in Seville. You know, just a fantastic fan base that is really energised for the club. And I think domestically things are set up. If the rebuild goes the way you would hope, the people that are there behind the scenes, for Rangers to kick on and go from strength to strength, and the kind of season that they've had, I just think Rangers are in a really, really good shape right now, right in this moment. It's you know, the league is gone, but the bigger picture is very, very bright indeed, I think.
Yeah, and you've got to remember they were so close to winning a European trophy in midweek as well. An overwhelming sense of pride with regards to that run, I think, when the dust fully settles, which it is now doing. Right, gents, I think we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for everyone interacting with the show. So many comments coming in. I do apologise if we didn't get to your comment that came in. Big thanks to the guys at Hampden watching Rangers overcome Hearts by 2-0, fully deserved here this afternoon. Goals coming from Ryan Jack, an absolute screamer, and then Scott Wright added the second shortly after. Remember, just a bit of housekeeping, folks. As you can see in the little scroll bar down the bottom, we've still got that great offer on the Rangers Review site, just £6 for 6 months worth of content. You pay your £6 and that's you sorted for half a year. Go and check it out, rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. You won't regret it. But big thanks for everyone for their support through the season. We'll still be continuing in the close season and in the summer as well, so you'll still get your Rangers fix. But it's been a tremendous campaign. What a debut season it's been, not only for everyone here working on the Rangers Review, and it's all full aboard heading into next year as well. So until then, we'll be back on Monday, but until then, enjoy your weekend.